Okay, ready now.
Okay. Most slaves did not want to be free. And in telling a friend that, we were on a conference call and he got upset. Several of us was talking and I had said, made that statement profound. And he told me, I call bullshit on that. Man, how can you say something like that? And I'm like, well, because it's true. And what prompted me to say it was looking at world situation because we were talking about global white supremacy. It had nothing to do with individual people like white people, black people, Latinos, whatever. It's that system that is all bound together with all kind of little stringy wires. And if you notice, most people would not want to see global white supremacy disappear. Okay, go. Because it's the world's problems. Okay? All the wars and everything else, it's all spun off of that one big web. And then when it goes, okay, then everything goes pretty much back to Stone Age, damn near. But then cream rises to the top and people will create governments, okay? And you'll have a better life experience for the working class, the average man. But now, with the slavery comment that I made, okay, spawned from two things that happened, all right? One is I went and seen the movie Gone with the Wind when I was about 11 years old, and 11 or 12, with a friend of mine, his mom. It was Saturday matinee in my hometown. There's two theaters, and it was during the daytime, early part of the day. She came and picked me up, and she's a white lady, very cosmopolitan. And my friend and I, we went, and she picked me up at my grandmother's because we was sixth graders, and I did sixth grade there at my grandmother's place. And that Saturday, we went. She came, picked us up, took us to the theater, and we had a ball. Had about three or four intermissions. Long movie, but we took advantage of that situation. She wanted us to go because her husband wouldn't go. His father, he wasn't about to go see Gone with the Wind, so she sit up cry all through it. Well, anyway, we went and got with a couple other kids, and we went up there in the peanut gallery, and we had fun. We intermissions, we ate all kind of candy and stuff and popcorn, and we even watched a movie because it was interesting. And when we got back, and it was me and my grandmother there at the house alone, my grandmother asked me how did I like the movie. And I knew I could always talk to her and ask her all kind of crazy questions because she was tolerant of me asking her weird questions. And I asked her, I said, Grandma, I said, the war ended. I mean, started, and slavery was over. After that first shot, it was the plantations was empty. I said, why did the two women, slave women, stay behind? And my grandmother looked at me because she was happy I asked the question. And she told me, she said, you ever hear the term pickaninny? And I said, yeah. She said, because that bitch, and she said it just like that, that would be the mammy. When guests would come visit the plantation from another county or another state or whatever, big wigs, they would give them a parting gift, and it would be a baby, slave baby. And she said she would go and get a couple of the bulldoggers, which was the animal controllers, the black men, strong bucks, a couple of strong bucks to help her. And she'd walk out in that field and she'd see that woman with her baby tied to her, and she'd snatch that baby, they'd hold her, snatch the baby, and she'd run to the house, put lard all on the baby, grease the baby up, put it in nice white linen, and hand it to the guest as they was leaving as a parting gift. And that young black girl that had that baby, just had it ripped out of her arms, had anger and hate for that mammy, okay? If a slave talked of revolt, somebody get word to mammy. Mammy ran that plantation, trust me, okay? And that person be beaten to death, okay? She kept her eyes on everything. If a man was, one of the slaves was coming too close to one of the young slave women, she'd tell massa. And they would sometimes even castrate him, okay, in front of everybody. Because those was massa's women, okay, his wenches. And you couldn't look at them, couldn't do anything. So that mammy did a lot of dirt. When they needed to beat a slave, they'd get the blacksmith or one of the bulldoggers, one of the big brawny, or one of the fighters that they had on the plantation to beat that slave to death. Okay? So they couldn't leave either. Okay? Because when it was time to bolt and head for the hills, if Mammy had took her ass up there with the rest of them, she'd have got her throat slit. They'd killed her. Okay? There was no recourse for her. So she had to stay. Okay? She couldn't go anywhere. And the second thing that happened that reinforced that with me, I was a young kid, just graduated high school, going to go to school out in California. That was my dream. So I went out in California, stayed with my cousin, and I worked part-time at Taco Bell, fast food. Earned up enough money. I went to a real nice, swanky hotel's restaurant bar. And I get there, and I'm sitting at a table for four. Waitress comes. She tells me this place is gonna fill up quick, sir. Can I ask you to sit at the bar? And that way I could have a table for four. I said, well, sure. She said, but I must warn you, that man right there, he'll talk your leg off you. He's a regular here. That won't bother you, Well, I said, no. So I sat up there and I gave me and him a chair between us. First thing that guy do is just jump and sit right there next to me. I'm feeling kind of queasy at that thought, But we got to talking, and the man, he informed me that he's retired. And I asked him, I said, well, what kind of work do you do? He said, I was a researcher for a lot of the big name producers and directors here, there in Hollywood. Now I'm living in Long Beach, California, okay? That's a little distance, not quite a drive, but that's where he retired to, there in Long Beach. And so we're talking, and I said, well, what exactly does researcher have to do with the movies? Because remember, I'm 18, I don't know nothing about movie making or anything. And he told me, he said, well, he says, you ever hear of Cecil B. DeMille? And I said, yeah. Ten Commandments. He said, yep. He said, he came to me. He said, that's how I got my break. He said, he came to me and told me he was going to make this movie. And he had no idea of life of a slave. So he wanted me to go and travel throughout the South to get as many slave stories as I could. And that way he could have some realization when he produced this movie, because it was going to consist of the slave mentality. And he wanted to sell it to the people. And so he looked at me and he said, you know what I discovered? I said, what? He said, in my travels from Louisiana all the way into Florida, he said, is that most of the slaves did not want to leave that plantation. He said, they didn't want the freedom. He said, they didn't know what it was. He said they were used to being hand fed, hand clothed, and all that. He said they had no idea of what being free was. They knew they didn't want to be beaten and killed and murdered and slaughtered. They knew that was wrong, but they didn't want the unknown. Well, I'm pissed because I'm listening to this man, and he's a white gentleman, by the way, elderly man. He looked like he was in his 70s. Um, and I was really bothered by that. I looked at him, I can't believe that. And I'm trying to be as nice as I could about it. And I, you know, trying to digest this. He said, he said, I was the same way. He said, but let's look at the facts. He said, when that first shot was fired, because I told him, I said, when the first shot was fired, it was over with. He said, yeah. He said, that's true. He said, but when that first shot was fired, he said, a lot of them head for the hills. They went straight for the north or they went straight out west. He said, but the majority stayed within 10 miles of the plantation, waiting for the war to end so they can go back home. Did you hear what I said? Go back home to the plantation. Now, I explained to you some could not even leave because they had done so much dirt among the other slaves for benefit of the slave master, the plantation owner, and the foremen. They had pitted the slaves against each other. They had hierarchies, okay? They had slaves that made money, that were big names, okay? They were all branded. The big plantations branded their slaves. Some slaves, depending on their brand, they didn't even get asked for papers when they went into town because their brand, arm brand, or the brand on their neck or on their face, that burning brand told who they were. And some of them had privileges that even the white foremen did not have, okay? Because they actually earned a lot of money. So when I talk of global white supremacy, I talk of the same type of plantation structure that existed on the plantation. Because when you look at who's where, do you actually think that an athlete is going to want to see global white supremacy collapse? That's currency. Global white supremacy's Achilles heel is currency. They lose the trade of currency because, see, currency is, like my grandmother said, you could chew and swallow a dollar and it can't make a turd. Okay? And that's what the global white supremacist countries, European, they base everything off of their currency trade because they don't have anything else to trade. Remember, they started trade with nothing. They went out and had to pirate and steal. The great pirates, Christopher Columbus and Blackbeard and all these people traveled the globe catching other ships, going to places, killing and looting and everything to feed Europe because Europe cannot survive without all the brown nations and yellow nations of the world. They have nothing. So they create the currency, global currency system, so that it may seem like that's why the European currency is worth more than even American currency. You have this currency pitted against, like I live here in the Philippines, 50 damn pesos for $1 US. That's how great the dollar is up against. But what does the US have? And the Philippines could feed the US if they wanted to. This is a wealthy country. 100% totally sustainable, living on the biggest water, freshwater aquifer in the world, and it's surrounded by ocean. Crazy kind of system, but that's global white supremacy. So if you take away that athlete, that entertainers, cash, what do they have? Nothing. all of a sudden, the wealthiest countries in the world would be the countries that have something to trade. Oil is really not needed because that's been proven with the science discoveries coming out of Nigeria. Fella got a car that can just run. Don't ever need charge. Don't need fuel. The fuel source is the battery, which is the sun. So what do you need oil for? So the Arab nations will go back to eating sand like they did 60 years ago. Okay? Um, Nothing. If you have something, you get something. That's trade. So when that collapses, you see a lot of people descending from it now. They got in preposition because a lot of people think that George Floyd, it was a trigger and it just, ooh, you know. I say this, and it's not conspiracy because I don't believe in conspiracies. It was the timing. There was a lot of entities working, okay, like a lot of little imps from hell. They're all working. They work against each other, but they're working for the same purpose to sustain global white supremacy. George Floyd was in the minds of the elite a straw that will break a camel's back because they're looking at the only thing can interrupt or bring down global white supremacy is the black American male. That's the big secret. Nobody wants to admit to. So what did they do? They hijacked it. They decided to do the protest. So yes, I know for a fact Soros, he did put a lot of money into Antifa and a lot of money into Black Lives Matter and a lot of money into the Boogaloo Boys or whatever they call them. So they had to have those people out there in the protests or whatever, anything except the black man, okay? Because they seen what happened in Baltimore. Baltimore scared the fuck out of everybody because there was 2 million black men that had hit the streets, okay? And I mean, China had their drones up in the air, North Korea had theirs, Libya had theirs, not Libya, Iran had theirs. Everybody had all these damn drones up there looking at that mass of men, angry men. And the one kid on CNN, he was standing next to the cameraman and the reporter, and he was up on top of the building where they were at, looking at that mass of just men, just down that boulevard. Oh my God, there was so many. And he looked and he said, "We got the numbers now." When he said that, they turned away from it, okay? And that resonated all over the world. And the only people didn't hear it is black folks because they never hear anything that's really as a warning. Um, the numbers. He knew. Well, they know. And they said, hey, listen, that was just one major city in the U.S. There's 254 major cities in the United States. Blacks do not know their numbers. Those who do know the numbers will tell you, oh, it's only 15% black folks in the U.S. If a son bitch says that, okay, you at war, okay? It's best to slit his throat because that son of a bitch knows goddamn well that it can't be 15% black folks. It was 15% black folks. They was telling you back in 1960 census. That's how they came about with the affirmative action. They used the numbers from the 1960 census. And then they only counted half the blacks. There is 30% and there is 20% other, which is Latino. White people consider themselves actually, now they are a minority in the United States, okay? They would tell you back, I remember back in the 80s, they said by 2020, whites will be the minority. Well, it's 2020, and now they're pushing the year up because they got Shanae to help them because Shanae has just a bigger interest is keeping global white supremacy at the top versus seeing black men come together and bringing it down. Nobody wants the black man to know his true number.
dude know his true numbers, he'd be like, oh shit, wait a minute. We can put a stop to all this shit real quick. Because when I tell you there's only, what, 15 to 18,000 National Guard in the state of Ohio, that's the state I'm from, so of course I would know these things. 3% black soldiers, okay, they have a limit as to how many blacks they allow in the National Guard because the National Guard is going to be the one who's assigned to shoot and kill citizens in the U.S. So who most likely is going to get shot and killed that they're going to order to shoot and kill is black folks. Ain't got no weapons or nothing, and the white boys hit the street and, and the U.S. happy to go and kill American citizens. They were talking about, I mean, you got a lot of videos of them, National Guard, okay? 97% white, but there's 30% black soldiers, American soldiers. And they have contingency for disarming black soldiers in theater. If you don't know what theater is the 14 countries that they are in Africa, is the Arab countries, is the European countries. They will take those guns from them brothers if something was to jump off like that because they know eventually they're going to get word that the white army, U.S. Army, killed their child, their mama, their daddy, okay? America is prepared for the black man. The black man has no clue about all this. So those are contingencies in order, in play, to disarm the black soldier, to alienate the black soldier, and if push come to shove, they will kill his ass out there in theater. Okay? They're prepared for all of that. And this is not some just, ghost theories. This is fact. You talk to anyone who's high ranking and do overseas work, there is contingencies for what's called mass insubordination. Okay? Um, so get ready for that. That's definitely coming. But the numbers, okay? When you can't, common sense tells anybody that you cannot sit up here and say white people are going to be the minority and you dealing with 15%, you talking about 15% of the population is black. That means that every black man, woman, and child living today is going to turn around and have 3 kids in the next 10 years. How fucking stupid do you have to be to keep sharing someone else's narrative or lying intentionally to move someone away from independent thinking? Because the one thing I've done is I have taken factual numbers like the prison, United States. You can go on any website, government website, it tells you exactly. I mean, the number is long. 2,500,000 and some thousand, all the way down to one that are incarcerated. And when they say incarcerated, they're talking city jail, county jail, state jail, federal jail. Okay? All of those combined is 2.5 million. Yes, the United States got more people in prison than anybody else per capita, but 2.5 million is not 1% of the nation's population of 350 million. I don't give a damn how you twist and turn it. 2.5 million. 1%? Seriously? 40% are black. Now remember, I said people incarcerated. When you go to the website, the government website, it says people. It doesn't say men. It's men and women. 40% black. Disproportionate, meaning we're not 40% of the population, but we're 40% of the prison population. But that's still 60% of the not black. All right? So if 40% and you take and you do the numbers, okay, you're going to have 1 million black people incarcerated in the United States. 1 million. And there is 350 million people in the United States. Okay? If I was to use dumbasses numbers of 15%, okay, We're talking 45 million, 50 million to one. Remember, 1 million in prison system. Okay, so that's 1 to 50. But let's use the real numbers, and it's going to be more like over 100 and some million black folks in the United States. All right, that's a lot. That's 1% of our population in the prison system. Even if you were going to be generous and say that they were all male, that's still 1% of our population. Well, 2% if we were to say male, because then you'd have to divide, and there's always 50-50. I always tell people that when you do the numbers, there's not more women than men. That's the biggest lie that the devil will ever tell you. But you go to the website and say how many men in the world, how many women, and it's always like 49 to 50, and with a 1.5%, error rate. So really what they're saying is it's the same amount. Do that in the US. Okay, there's nothing stupid about me. I'm telling you the facts. So anybody lying to you, there's more women in there, that's a goddamn lie. God did not create an imbalance. It's always going to be 1 to 1. So now, if you have 50 million black men in the U.S. and 1 million, okay, 1 million, not 10 million, 1 million, okay, that's 2%. So 2% are incarcerated, 98% are not incarcerated in no way, shape, or form, okay? Because they consider halfway houses as incarceration as well. So all in that, 98% black men walking around here. Then when they tell you 7% unemployment rate, even if they said 10% unemployment rate, you guys, that's 90. You're not looking at the big number. That's 90% that are gainfully employed. Fuck you. Shit. Brothers ain't running around here looking stupid, acting stupid. That's your media feeding you that, and Shanae, who works just as good for the media and trying to discredit the black man. But the real numbers scare the fuck out of the powers that be because they see the real numbers. Okay, when people bragging, oh, Trump got black unemployment down, this and that. You know what? He's the only president that did. I'm not saying that the man is good. They're all evil. Ask me, big racist. But, okay, he had to do something because the reality is that if the black man wake the fuck up, everybody goes. He's not taking any prisoners, okay? So understand that and understand the mentality that nobody is going to want to see global white supremacy fall that benefits from it. Who don't? The black man, okay? You look at civil rights. Who benefit from civil rights? Not the black man. You hire women, hire gays, hire any damn body but a black man and treat him like shit. You could beat him down in the streets and shoot him, knowing he ain't got no gun, kill him, murder him. Nobody's really mad about that shit. They only use the Floyd situation because black men are getting anxious. They're getting mad. You look at them brothers down in Georgia, they armed. They're too small, okay? You look at the ones in Dallas, all these different factions and groups. And then you have the Israelites out there in California. Okay, I'm a Hebrew. I understand they're what they're trying to do, but they're all divided by something. You look it up in Chicago, the FOI, Fruit of Islam. They use religion. But the one thing we all have in common is we have a target. The biggest organ in the world is black. It's on our body. And people who have fair, light brown, yellow, casting to their that big organ of skin, they fare a lot better than the fellow who's got the black. And especially adults. And adults is the ones that will bring down global white supremacy. If white people think that they're going to be dealing with their grandpa's Negro, they got another thought coming. Because black men, as I told you, have been mandated. It was mandated since Vietnam War that black men make up 30% of the military. So that means that all these veterans, black male veterans running around here, is going to let a small group of National Guardsmen disperse them. It's not about to happen. They're going to end up driving those vehicles and shooting them damn guns as those bodies of those guardsmen are laying on the ground. That's the reality. Infrastructure is going to fall. The United States will be just like Iraq. Iraq still don't have running water and electricity. To this day, the United States took out that infrastructure. You take out a country's infrastructure, that's it. And the most vulnerable thing with the United States is just infrastructure. Killing and murdering black folks, okay, is appeasing to middle class white America by majority. They have no problem with it. They're agitated. They're driving cars into protesters. They're coming out of their bag. They hate the idea of having to put aside their racism, their hatred. And that's the only thing they see. They believed Donald Trump when he talked about make America great again. They think that's great having somebody that they could have their foot on. And that's what they see when they hear that. That's what they envision. It could never be that way, ever in the United States. And they are not using common sense to realize that. So that's why I feel it's very important to tell you, don't be confused, but just understand that everybody ain't down with this, slavery ending or global white supremacy being destroyed. But they're doing it themselves, essentially. You have Donald Trump, he's fighting evil forces, you guys. I mean, he is fighting some evil forces, global forces. When you hear him talking about WHO, you guys just don't know how serious that is. These people who run these organizations are running them under the pretense of white life, saving white life, killing black and brown. Mass killings, okay? That's their goal. That doesn't make Donald Trump nice, okay? Because he's just as much for global white supremacy as they are. He's just coming from a different angle. So you have to understand that. And then there's other evil forces. Like when you look at the people who backing Biden, those are some very wicked people. They have a wicked agenda. They think that they could sustain global white supremacy by creating alternate currencies and do tracking, human trafficking, mind control, and all this that. So they're putting a lot of effort into that. Well, Trump's in the way of that because he's sitting up here. He don't like the way they're trying to undercut him. Okay, he's got a little taste of power, and he don't want to give it up. Then there's the Europeans that's in alliance, like with the WHO. First damn thing they want to do is get down there and get their hands on Africa because China is trying to do that. China senses, yes, okay, the gig is up, okay, for global white supremacy. And China's always played both sides of the fence, okay. And now they're down there in Africa and they're trying to make barter deals and stuff, but racism won't allow them to because they have taught racism so long in China against blacks that when they started attacking the blacks that were there, that made Africa back away from the table from a lot of the business deals. They lost billions and billions because of that. China is down in South America right now, instigating. United States is there. Venezuela, biggest oil reserves in the Americas, okay, is people poor. So like I said, you can have all the resources you want, but if you don't have the currency. And so when Hugo Chavez left, that was it. Okay, that was one of the wealthiest countries you could go to. Now it's poor. Brazil, they got a fascist in running that country, and very racist. Got these racist ideologies and stuff. And he again, like Trump, think that he's going to be dealing with his grandpa's Negroes. Okay, Brazil has the second largest black population of any country outside of Nigeria. Nigeria is number one. Brazil is number two. That lets you know how many black folks down there in Brazil. Brazil's about to pop. It's going to pop even before the U.S. They're about fed up because you got this white dude, he down there trying to bring in Nazism. It worked for Argentina, but it won't work for Brazil. So these things I'm sharing with you guys, take it for what it's worth. It's fact. There's no conspiracy behind this bullshit. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I know about the Q and QAnon or whatever that is. There's conspiracies and this and that. And understand one thing, they all lacking one thing. And I know that one thing. And when I see them, I'm able to identify them as evil forces, okay? So just trust me on that. They're not good, okay? So when you guys get them videos and stuff talking about the virus is a hoax or the virus is a plan to do this or the 5G and all this, there's truth to all of that, but they are not the truth. I don't know if you can understand that, but they don't support the whole truth. They do bring out some pretty good things because these people actually believe that they could sustain, they're trying to sustain white life. And when you understand that, then you can see all of them, all the groups together, working together, and they all serve one purpose. So they're not going to try to kill off each other, no, but they're going to try to win over control. So that's what it's about, controlling the populace to sustain the life that is in Europe, because that's where everybody's going to be hurting if there's no currency. Currency is the Achilles heel. If you don't have nothing, you don't get nothing. Period. You gotta understand that. When you can understand that, you can understand how everything works thereafter. You can understand why they would want to go into Central America, South America, and Asia, and Africa, because they have something. My God, they've been trading for eons, far before the Europeans hit the water. Them dudes was trading global trade peacefully. But now it's all about killing and murdering. You know, every level 3, level 4 lab, and then the higher, the secret labs, okay, that I call level 5s, all those laboratories work to find a way to kill a human life, not to save a life. And when you understand that mentality, and that was the mentality that was sent out across the waters from Europe, was to kill and destroy, then you can be better armed. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. And so you need to know that there's nobody trying to save your life or the life of anybody. In fact, they make it very clear that they want to kill everybody. Because if you could take everybody in the world, put them in the state of Alaska, give them all a plot of land, and you can do this. All you got to do is go on the internet and see how many acres are in the state of Alaska. How many people are on the earth? And you can divide those acres up into lots, land lots, put a house and a lot for every human being, even a baby, okay, can each have their own lot in the state of Alaska. That's everybody on this earth. Put them all in that one state. Now you realize there's no population problem. We don't have a problem with population control. What you have a problem with is resources that need to go and fuel several countries of what is it, 100 and some countries up in Europe. That's it. That's what they're talking about. When you can understand that, you understand that these motherfuckers talking about killing you just to make way so that they can eat for the rest of the all eternity. That's what it's all about. And once you guys stop taunting the narrative, oh, population control, thinning the herd, using terms like that, there's no problem with population control. There's no problem. I mean, we, in fact, we only know of 80%. No, we know 40% of the what's on this earth on land mass. 40%, which means 60% is undiscovered. Of land mass undiscovered, 60%. Wow, that should tell you right there. Whoa, there's a lot of land and property all about. So no, we don't have a problem with squeezing each other out. New York City, they live on top of each other. Mexico City, they live on top of each other. Okay, you got a few cities around the world where people just all swoop together and live on top of each other. That's just a few. Have you seen the desolate areas? I go into the mountains and I don't see another human being all day while I'm up there. Beautiful, lush greenery, fruit trees everywhere, and I don't see a human being all day. So I'm telling you, we don't have a population problem. We have a problem with greed, wanting everybody's resources, period. So when you get tired of being a slave and you want to join in on the struggle to destroy global white supremacy rather than trying to figure out a way to live in it, because it's not going to be a place you're going to want to be when too many folks decide, yeah, it's time to bring it down. Because when it comes down, a lot of people ain't going to live 2 weeks, okay? Because they can't survive. They don't have that knowledge to. So just understand that. Lone in Paradise, I'm out of here.